Oh hey, my name's Ryan, and today we're gonna squat in the snow. Here we go. All right, and obviously it's pretty cold today, so we're gonna hop on the rower and get probably like a 10-minute warm-up going on. I usually only go to like 2 minutes if it's a hot day, 3 to 5 if I need a little bit extra juice, but today I think we're gonna have to get this old tugboat going and go for like 10 minutes. So hop on the rower and then we'll get started. Got a few things to do before we start squatting. Gonna go through a little complex to increase some mobility. I'm gonna need that today. And then we'll do a few jumps and I'll start moving some stuff outside to get squatting. So let's do it. Ooh. Jumps on the menu for today are barbell squat jumps with a full squat. I'm gonna go 2 sets of 5. And I'm gonna load these up a little bit, probably in the neighborhood of like 95 pounds or so. I'm gonna completely raw dog today's workout. No heater, only warmth I'm gonna experience is the warmth of the machinery of my body. That sounds so corny to say, right? I was in Crunch Fitness the other day and I could just feel the air conditioning on the back of my neck the entire workout. And I just came to the realization that like we're always working out in a space that is engineered in such a way to promote comfortability, right? And like we probably don't recognize that, and then we should probably spend the majority of our time in a comfortable environment like that. Like, you know, we have the technology to do so, but I don't know, maybe it's not the best thing to always do that, and to realize that like, hey, Mother Nature is out there. There's a ton of different environments we could potentially expose ourselves to. It seems fun to try to expose our bodies to those different environments and see how they react and our mind reacts in accordance with that. I don't know, just some food for thought. Huh? Come on. By the time you see this, all episodes of Training in the Yard will have come out, and I bought this specifically for that. And then I'm glad I did, because now I have this much lighter and more movable rack than my Rogue rack, which has all my metal plates on it. So it's so much easier to do fun stuff like this.
So much aerobics in here. So many activities. Class, it's making my head spin how many activities we can do.
As good a spot as any, I guess. Let's see if I can engineer a way to bring this camera out there, because it's raining right now and icy. I think I have an idea. Umbrella, electrical tape. Alright, just a couple more pieces here. I think it'll be good to go. Okay, so my amazing and incredible viewer, I want you to know that while I'm out here being an idiot, you are safe and sound underneath an umbrella, tucked in, nice and cozy. Alright, it's currently 1:54. And I'm going to take this watch and actually put it on the bar. And You'll see why once I get to my working sets for the day. Does this beanie look too small for my head? I think it is. Alright, before we start getting super serious today and getting into our working sets, there's a theme, or just a topic of discussion that I want to start off with in the book Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by Carl Jung. So it says here on page 98, during my first years at the university, I made the discovery that while science opened the door to enormous quantities of knowledge, it provided genuine insights very sparingly. These in the main were of a specialized nature. I knew from my philosophical reading that the existence of the psyche was responsible for the situation. Without the psyche, there would be neither knowledge nor insight, yet nothing was ever said about the psyche. Everywhere it was tacitly taken for granted, and even when someone mentioned it, as did C.G. Cairns, for example, there was no real knowledge of it, but only philosophical speculation, which might just as easily take one turn as another. I could make neither head nor tail of this curious observation. Alright, let's go ahead and throw on the belt here. And I promise I'm going to attempt to make some sort of connection between that reading and the next reading. Took about less than a minute to get into this next rep here. I want to expedite this warm-up and also maintain it. So what I really like about that excerpt that I just read to you from Jung is that it was one of the first times that I had ever come across a man of such a high caliber of intellect discuss science in such an intimate way and kind of be forthright with science and say that it doesn't give you all the answers. And he literally explicitly says that he never gained any real insights, any deep understandings from science. And now I can't claim this to be totally true, right, on my own behalf or like for all of the world, because obviously that's not true. Science has given us many, many, many great things that otherwise wouldn't have been given to us. Coming at this from the perspective of exercise science, because that's the only science that I've ever really been close enough with to feel comfortable talking about. In any of the scientific studies, and let me be explicitly clear here, scientific studies like regarding training, not necessarily biology and physiology and things like that, those pieces of science have absolutely fundamentally changed the way that I think about training forever. I'm talking about like studies of exercise science. I've never read one of those studies, especially now, and have it change drastically the way that I think about the training process. If anything, it's really only reaffirmed some of the things that I already assumed just based upon anecdotal experience and working with my own clients and through all of the different jobs and odd ends that I've done with training so far throughout my career. And so I just found that really fascinating. Let's do another warm-up set. Let's read that other excerpt. Let's finish that concluding remark, and then we'll get into the set for the day. No idea what this is in pounds. I'm terrible with kilos. But I do know that when I put all of my kilo plates on, it's 462 pounds. I'm like 95% sure of that. So this is probably in the neighborhood of like 430. I don't know. A piece of plywood or a 2x4 is a great way to circumvent having to get Olympic shoes, but I wouldn't even make that. Like I wouldn't even do that. I would just get some squat shoes. Because I hate having to like walk my feet back onto this platform and like get it just right. You know, with shoes on, that's not even a problem. You can just rest assured knowing that you're going to be in a good position to squat. Feel good there. Let's add the greens. That should be a good weight for the day. We'll get started. All right, let's read that other excerpt. I am trying to maintain this warmth. It says on page 72, this expression, God's world, may sound sentimental to some ears. For me, it did not have this character at all. To God's world belonged everything superhuman, dazzling light, the darkness of the abyss, the cold impassivity of infinite space and time, in the uncanny grotesqueness of the irrational world of chance. God for me was everything and anything but edifying. I love when Jung in this book talks about faith in God, and I'm not, making a specific connection to what I'm talking about to this in terms of God. It's simply a connection between science and other forms of reasoning specific to exercise science. But whenever he does talk about faith in God and theology, he writes with an enthusiasm and a vibrance that is unparalleled to most other authors, and it's really, really fun and exciting to read. In this excerpt where he talks about the dazzling light of God's world, I like to make a connection to the soul, if you will, of training. In that, some of the most personal and otherwise unobtainable lessons I've learned from training have not come from reading anything scientific. It has been from doing the actual process of training. I never would have learned those things had I had not paid attention to training in a way where I'm just allowing my own experience to reveal itself to me and for that to teach me something. It's not that I'm looking at training through the scientific lens. Training will teach you things. You just have to be wise enough to pay attention. One of the quotes that I always like to reference in that book that Jung writes is, "In science, I missed the factor of meaning." And this is something that Karl Popper delineates as the line of demarcation, in that the only sort of bias that science can have is the generation of a hypothesis, right? A scientist can absolutely have some bias there in terms of wanting to test something, but after that, and once he sets up a scientific experiment, there can be no inundation of his own feelings and his own beliefs into the scientific experiment. Science has to be void of all of that. I think that's what Jung means in that, if you only view the world in training through a scientific lens, you're missing out on some of the most personable and deeply imbued feelings of meaning that you could ever come across, or at least this has been my experience. So, starting to lose some warmth, and that weight is not going to lift itself. So here's what we're going to do. We have 5 reps. We're going to do 1 rep every 60 seconds. So I'm probably just going to let the camera roll, lock in, and get these reps done. That's why I put the watch here, so I can use that as my timer. All right, rep number 1. Get it on. Let's get it on. Sorry, I had to. Marvin Gaye just speaks to me, Oh, yeah. This is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. One thing I absolutely noticed about training in the yard, and continuing to notice now, is that you are not as strong as you would be. It is cold. Holy cow. So keep that in mind. Kind of a humbling experience. That's good for you though, You gotta be knocked down a few pegs every now and then. Another just amazing part of this is that bar is nice and cold when you put it on your neck. So not only am I being choked out by the bar, it's also freezing cold. It's just great. It's so smart when you're training ideas. Two more. It's getting hard. Gotta focus. Not gonna lie. Alright, last one. Last one today was blow it up. Alright, gonna quickly roll with the rest of the workout. Next thing we're going to get into are some small deficit Romanian deadlifts. And I believe it's a 2x8 or maybe a 2x6. It is in fact a 2x6. And for me a small deficit is I don't know, 2 inches or so. So I'm just gonna lay down these pieces of wood right here. I think this will work. These are the other pieces of wood I was gonna use for today. That should be fine. Really don't know what weight I'm looking for. I'm looking for like a 7 or 8 RPE. This is the first week, so keeping it somewhat relatively low in terms of a stimulus and intensity. I don't know, high 300s, low 4s, something like that. Yeah, we're smarter, not harder. Okay. Let's see what I actually have on my whiteboard. Conversion for these kilo plates. So this will be 352. So this might be the last warm-up set. Could possibly do one more based upon how this feels. We'll be ready to go. Feel like right in the neighborhood of 390, 400, and that should be a good weight for the day. Oh, hey kilos. Give me my freedom units. You know? If I had 30 kilos, conversion is 2.2 pounds. Well, let's see here. Let's do some math. And that should be 418 pounds. And I promise I didn't use a calculator to do that. That'll be good for today. Really gonna try to push Romanian deadlifts hard. This block, don't treat them as just like this accessory exercise. Treat them as a strength exercise, just like a deadlift. Like, intend to push them hard, and I think you'll get more gains from them. Alright, here's how I want to close this. And that, I want to explicitly state that I'm not attacking science or criticizing science in terms of its validity and what we can gain from it. I think it's an extremely useful tool. Not only has it legitimized assumptions within training, like there's that saying that, you know, the people training are the ones who like generate the new ideas, and then science just comes in and validates them. Like, not only is that true, but definitely in some ways science has pushed the expanse of knowledge to a degree that, like, you know, just someone training couldn't as well. Like, we have to offer that up. And what helped me put all of this in a really good perspective from a view in which, like, I can actually make sense of all this is, ironically, from a book called Making Sense by Sam Harris, where he literally just has conversations with people, like literally, it's just like recordings of podcasts translated as text. And one of the conversations that he had was with David Deutsch, and Sam asks the question, something along the lines of, how do you view science in regards to philosophy and things like that? And David Deutsch calls science, philosophy, among other forms of reasoning, as manifestations of reason. And ever since I read that line, it allowed me to take a step back from science, philosophy, and view them as tools of reasoning. And that each of these tools, much like I would use a hammer and a screwdriver for different applications, you use science and philosophy for different applications as well, and they will give you something different. Science legitimizes knowledge in that, like, it instantiates it as truth. And then on the other side of that coin being philosophical inquiry, anecdotal evidence, and bringing Jung into the conversation today. And really what I'm trying to get at is like a little bit of metaphysics in that, like the question of being, what it means to be and experience training. Like, just as science has given us things in terms of training, so has all of those other things. It is up to you wherever you lean more towards in terms of the predominant lens through which you view training. If that is scientific in nature, by all means, that is great for you. I love that. And if you feel like that's the best way for you to go through the training process, keep doing you. But if you find that training is getting stale, or like you're just missing something, then I would encourage you to bring some of these other forms of reasoning, these manifestations of reason, into your training process and allow those things to speak to you and teach you things that otherwise you wouldn't gain from scientific thinking only. So if you got snow, I hope you had fun and stay safe, and training is fun.